Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now, I'm with my good friend Felix Hyde today, and we're going to be talking about something special that he's been putting together. Felix, for those of you who don't know him, is quite an extraordinary healer. We're going to hopefully sort of unpack a little bit of why I say that in a moment, but he's put together a course to begin to teach people really how the work that he does himself. He's trying to begin to take it out. So we're going to be looking at that. But first of all, Felix, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to be back with you once more. I know you've been very, very busy on this. We've got our heads together at various points on YouTube and chatted about various things, but haven't seen much of you recently because you've been very, very busy on this. And it is a big piece of work. He's given me a sneak peek, and it is a big piece of work. So yeah, let's start by, I mean, you, as I say, you are a healer, and healer takes in all sorts of different modalities and things like that. But let's begin by asking, why did you become a healer?
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful intro.
Yes.
As well. Yeah, okay, so why did I become a healer? Well, I kind of ran myself into the ground, to say the least. I love to take drugs, I love to party, I love to kind of, do all the wild things for a very long time. And all of it was basically revolving around escapism and avoidance of trauma. And this is quite typical of an indigo type 3, where we kind of are faced with really intense circumstances and very intense kind of trigger traumas that kind of fragment the consciousness and split it into like high drives of polarity. So through the process, it's basically been to get myself back together, if anything, from kind of drug addiction, from mental health disorder, suicide, and kind of having to rebuild my mind, basically. So through all of that process and through the kind of various traumas that I kind of went through, I was diagnosed borderline personality. And that was, I think that was in like 2015, around 2015. And after I kind of like hit the peak of my Saturn return, so when I was about around 27 years old, I ended up in hospital, and basically had to change all the medication that I was on, because the mental health medication I was on was kind of sending me in the other direction. I needed to be a lot slower. And then through that, I was able to kind of slow back down and kind of start to process and see the shitstorm that I'd created through my own actions. Yay.
I mean, this is, classic wounded healer stuff. You heal through your own wound, and first and foremost, your first client is yourself, isn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Once you've figured it out for yourself, then you can start to help others. But it's fascinating because it's an absolutely classic path, but so many walk a similar path. And you mentioned indigo type 3. Just for those of you who really aren't aware of what an indigo type 3 is, it's a type of template. It's a starseed template, and it's a difficult starseed template. I mean, I don't think any of being a starseed here on this planet is easy for any of them, but the indigo type 3s have taken on difficult missions, and often, as Felix has said, there's a very deep wounding that needs to be a split that needs to be integrated. And so yeah, I mean, the challenge becomes the gift, effectively. The wound becomes the light you can begin to shine into the world. But so many falter at this stage. I mean, you mentioned about being in hospital, getting a mental health diagnosis, being on drugs and things like that. And for so many people, that's the end of the story, when it in some respects, it's the universe saying, hey, there's something that really needs your attention here. Now, you turned your attention to it where many others get buried by it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Why were you different? I mean, that's a bit of a silly question in some ways, because I'm not sure you can answer it, but
okay,
you prevailed where others haven't managed it.
okay, I'll tell you exactly the formula that made it work. After when I went into hospital, which hit the peak of the kind of destruction or the trauma, this actually was a huge death rebirth moment. And for 2 weeks, I lay in the hospital bed. I didn't eat for like 5 or 6 days when I was in there. And I basically felt like I was decomposing. And it was that through that process, and it's going to be different for everyone because we go through this extreme situation that triggers up the ability to be able to see the damage you've done. And then that triggers the emotional purge. So what would typically happen within that process is as the emotion moves out of the way, you can start putting different things in there to make it, to fix it. So this effectively triggers the movement out of the third dimensional field into the fourth by splitting open and, well, not splitting open, by opening out all the emotion, seeing it in real time, a baptism of fire, and then you start walking the path of the compartmentalization and processing to unify. Sorry, my dog's just having a having a shower. He's growling right now. So yeah. So
Don't worry,
doesn't like having his hair dried. Yeah. So through that process, I basically released all this emotion very, very quickly, which left me completely spangled because I was like, what the fuck is going on here? Whilst I was in hospital, they changed all my medication, which slowed everything down as put on kind of antipsychotics. So I wasn't kind of going into the states of psychosis that I was in. And that started to, I was able to very slowly start to communicate, but obviously the pain body was so triggered at the time. It was a case of just feeling through the pain. And then the interesting thing when I came off the I think it was either I think it's called paroxetine, like a Prozac base mental health thing that they put me on in China, as well as heaps of Xanax as well. The withdrawal from the paroxetine, it was like every 5 minutes you would go into a new emotion.
Wow.
A new state of emotion, and it was looping round, very, very, very intense at the start. And then gradually started to phase out. So it was like I was kind of having to process all of these things on a repeated cycle. I'd go from like happy, manic, crazy, frustrated, reactionary, depressed, fearful. It was like I was feeling everything in one go, like over the space of like 20 minutes. And that was like attuning me back into what it feels like to feel.
I was going to say that, I mean, that really is, in some respects, it's a baptism of fire, but it's also, you know, you get real clarity about what each of these states is.
Yeah, exactly. So you're fine-tuning yourself to the emotional state, which after doing drugs for 10, 15 years, where you've avoided all of these things.
Yeah.
You're then rapidly having everything come up to the surface, and that's coding in a level of awareness to you. Now, after that, I went into a state of kind of like dark night of the soul. I'm not talking to anybody. And I did. It took me like probably about 4 or 5 years to actually start socializing again. After what had kind of gone down. But from that process, after going through the mental health medication change and starting to feel emotions, after about 2 weeks, that started to subside and started to neutralize a bit. When that occurred, there was still kind of echoes of explosive behavior, which is very, very normal in these cases because obviously you're breaking through all of these levels of programming and updating your chakra system to be able to process the information which when you've dealt with layers upon layers of trauma, the reaction and the artificial intelligence that kind of interloops with the third dimensional overlay, the artificial overlay, that kind of creates a restriction. So when you start to expand beyond it, it starts to hurt. Yeah. And therefore that triggers the reaction state within you. Yeah. And that's what they want. So they can either loop back in more, but there's also a level of kind of whether it is justified, whether it's not justified. So if it's justified, then it doesn't loop back in. But if it isn't justified, then it kind of amplifies again.
Yeah, and in some respects, what you're describing there is like classic starseed sabotage.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah, 100%.
For those of you who want to just know a little more about that, there is a video on my channel about starseed sabotage. We're not going to go into that here because we could talk about that for, you know, forever. But yeah, so, yeah, I mean, basically. The way I look at it with you is that the dark forces, whatever you want to call them, they tried to take you down. And for a time it was succeeding, and then something snapped you out of it, and you grabbed hold of that lifeline and you seized it, and you and really you've turned everything around into where you are now, which is helping others navigate this really difficult time and rebuild, bring them out of the trauma and rebuild their multi-dimensional light body. And that is where you are so different to so many out there, is that your understanding isn't just at the 3D level. You know, you've gone into the upper layers. So yeah, you know, it's a very different approach, and you link into the you know, the Guardian Alliance, you link into the Emerald Order, which are great galactic structures as well. So tell me how that happened.
That's a really good question. I think I was working with a healer for like a month or two, and through that, she mentioned something about the Elohai. And that Elohai resonance stuck with me. And then it built from the Elohai to the Christos founder races. So they actually called themselves the Elohai, and then the divine, something like the divine feminine mothers. Then it went into the Christos founder races, and then it became like a kind of Trinity flame. And then it went up into the Emerald Order, and then it became, God, it came something else after that, because I'm even just kind of connecting into this now with a new name, and this is kind of tied into the God world. So there was the Eloha, which felt like a higher iteration of the Elohai, and that felt like it was kind of stemming through the God world structure. And then there's also something that I'm kind of just picking up on now, which is like an interdimensional structure of worlds. And they're kind of just making themselves known to me right now, this very second. So I feel like that's kind of tied back into the
Dimensional Association of Free Worlds. There's a literally a structure and organization. Yeah. All the Christos races come together. Right. So fascinating.
Okay. There you go. So there's that, but that feels like it's connected into the God world structure. So that okay. I'm going to take your your nodding heads for that. So yeah, that feels like a whole new. I'm going to tap your brain for that afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that feels like it's just kind of connected into the God world structures that we've all been kind of given access to over the past year through the expansion of the DNA template into the 24 strands. So that's very interesting. So yeah, the structure of it evolves and evolves and evolves, and it still relays information to you. It just expands at a rate of knots. There's also another leg to my structure called the Diamond Council of High Alchemy. And they're the ones that are kind of supporting me into working with kind of like translocational states or bilocational. They seem to work more so into the evolutionary states of the mind and how to operate them. So yeah.
It's fascinating because actually, I mean, you came out of you came out of the challenges you have, and you're very clearly supported above and beyond to bring through the modalities that you're working with, and that you know you're going to be going on to teach, as it were. So yeah, you've got some heavy hitters standing behind you. I think it's probably the easiest way, which is one of the reasons why I'm pretty sure that you know, your healing is so effective. And so I said very, very different, but very, you know, it just shifts things to a different level, doesn't it? Okay. We haven't got oodles of time, so let's get on to begin to start to talk about the course. You've called it the Structures of Healing, which I absolutely love, because you know, healing, I mean, we've all been kind of like brainwashed to think about healing at the physical level, but healing is about so much more than that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
So much more than that. And you know, our mental structures, our emotional structures, our light body structures, I mean, these are very, very clearly defined. Then there's nothing, when you really start to dive into them, there's nothing woolly about them. And I know you've really sort of penetrated deep. So first of all, you know, let's start the Structures of Healing, level 1, you're calling it. So there's a lot more to come, folks. But who are you aiming it at?
Everybody and anybody, really. Everybody's got the ability to heal. Literally everybody does. The way that I've modeled this is so we kind of focus on working to process our own emotions first, which I think we've all, at all levels, we've been kind of capped and not had a kind of like a blueprint for how to do on a conscious level, or put it into a kind of structure or form as to how to work with it. So the way that I see this progressing is actually going into like schools. It's going to be going into kind of like New Earth academies. I personally feel like this can go like in every kind of classroom. And that is my hope for it, because ultimately when we're able to kind of start to understand ourselves and process ourselves, we gain back so much of our power.
And you know, as you very clearly lay out in the course, that there is this very clear structure. And if we are taught it and understand it, then we can help ourselves in a way. At the moment, we are taught to, you know, hand our sovereignty for our bodies, our health, our well-being over to others who then trash it.
Absolutely.
Seems to be my experience of it.
Absolutely.
So you know, this feels like at least this first level, it feels like you're giving people a toolkit.
Yeah, that is the plan, basically, for them to kind of have the structures in front of them, then work independently on themselves, and also with each other on the course as well. Ideally, that's what I'd love. So they can start to build kind of case studies, build a process of being able to do this, and then these toolkits will actually open up to your own unique individual skills and abilities to process, because everybody opens up in a very different way. There is no this or that, black or white, but when we've got the structures and know what to look for when we're in there, this can then build into your own unique healing practice or modality that only you can create. That's the beauty of it, because it gives you back your own power to create something that is so perfect for you.
So people can help themselves, but I'm also assuming here that level 1, those who do want to go on, who are called, and it is a calling, you know, to be a healer, who that sits very, very strongly in someone. Again, this is beginning to put in the foundations, and you will take them on. I'm assuming in the you know, to become a professional qualification.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I want to achieve with this, is for them to become completely independent with it, and then kind of become a master of their own art themselves.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Oh, I
the
love that.
that's the overall outlook.
Yeah, I mean, you've just said become a master of their own art, and healing is an art, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it really is. It's very interesting because of the way that it all kind of comes together. It's never there's so many unseen turns and events that take place, and you just start padding out your own morphogenetic field and building your own morphogenetic field into more coherence. And as you kind of work through your own stuff, that is the thing that gives you access into your kind of like your higher akashic, which would also be seen as a morphogenetic field anyway. So yeah, it's really just about claiming back what's rightfully yours, and these structures are there to support that.
Yeah. Well, let's look at that a little bit more in detail now, because I think it's on your website, isn't it? You've put the different modules there.
Yes.
But there's a lot to it. So let me just read out the headlines, as it were.
Yeah.
Field preparation, gathering data, which is an interesting one. Trauma identification, which is fascinating. The structure of the ego, so important. Healing your consciousness, both, first of all, the emotional body, and then your mental body. And then timeline healing, fascinating. And then healing your consciousness, soul retrieval. So there's a lot here that you know within, and then there's so much within each one. I can't tell you, this is, I mean, I've done lots of healing courses at various points in the past, you know, starting with chakras and your Reiki and all sorts of things. You know, and I've done courses about the physical body. I've done courses about, you know, the energetic body as well. But this is unlike anything I've ever seen, if I'm honest. So can we just start with gathering data?
Okay. Yeah, let's go there.
You know, yeah, we'll work through it, because there's something in each of these that yes, just, I mean, it's so yummy, folks. It really is.
Okay, yeah. So gathering data, whenever we go into meditation, we're always kind of going into process your consciousness. So what I've kind of processed when I've gone into to process it, my energy system, I've always come back with such important information that has been the assistant for me to kind of go into higher expansion at different levels. So what I kind of came up with within that is the process of mapping your consciousness. Now, the key to mapping your consciousness is, number one, you're processing the emotion first. That clears out the space for you to then draw reason and logic to it, which would then go into the mental body. And then with the updating of that, it creates a spiral of awakening, as well as, which is an expansive spiral that goes vertically upwards and goes expanding outwards. But then you've got the spiral of truth. So as you refine yourself and pull your consciousness in to get to the core point of truth, it does the opposite effect of the spiral of awakening, but they work hand in hand with each other.
Yeah, so it's like one is expanding, and then the other is helping you to embody.
Yeah,
so it truth of something.
Yeah, so it refines. You go through a process of refinement to get to the core and get to the crux of truth.
Yeah.
And that basically assists in the expansion of your awareness.
Yeah.
So two contradictory, opposing forces, one that refines and contracts, one that expands outwards. And this is some levels that you'll be working into, is the paradoxical thinking, and the way that our minds are being kind of trained in the astral and archetypal fields and beyond to be able to work with these kind of ways of thinking to move into expansion, because that's how consciousness evolves. It is quite literally like a stretching of the Play-Doh, or, you know, kneading the dough to kind of get it to the shape that you want it to get to, so you can absorb and take it all on board.
So you're teaching people to do that and begin to bridge the multidimensional fields.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this has been a really core practice for my own expansion and for the expansion of my clients, to be able to stretch their mind into accepting these complex structures and complex thought processes and thinking outside of the box. It needs to be manipulated to kind of get there. And mapping your consciousness has been the perfect way to do that. So documenting what kind of themes are coming up, what the thought patterns are coming up, and how the mind works in the higher dimensional fields, and looping that back down to the physical. This then creates a bridge between the vertical axis down into the physical horizontal axis. And that starts to stretch our minds and our understanding to create ourselves into a trinity format, like a triquetra geometry way of thinking, as opposed to a kind of Vesica Pisces, this or that way of thinking, to kind of get all these different perspectives. And the more we kind of go for it, the more we're able to expand ourselves up the spiral staircase or up through the strands of DNA to get the highest perspective of our diamonds and templates.
Yeah.
The
trauma identification, I just want to say you bring in the tree of life as well, don't you? At this level, which is as Felix has said, it's the core manifestation template, and understanding that is absolutely key to understanding so much. So that, I mean, there's a huge amount packed into this already. You know, the trauma identification, I mean, again, it's an interesting one, because actually every single one of us is highly traumatized. If you look around you at the moment, I mean, there's a load of rubbish going on in the 3D world. We all know that. It's just chaos and dreadful stuff happening, that has so many people so well overwhelmed. They just don't understand what it's all about, and they're very, very close. You know, they're on a knife edge. So, you know, our trauma bodies have been very well developed, shall we say, and understanding that, and you bring in ancestral trauma, you bring in epigenetic trauma. It's not just, oh, I was abused as a child, or, you know, my friends, I was bullied, or whatever it might be. It goes way beyond that. You define very clearly the difference between the pain body and the shadow body, and the negative ego, because they are different, and they're all different structures that need to be dealt with, don't they? In their own way. Because I was just saying to Felix before we hit record, you know, the next, as our consciousness is expanding into soul expression, the next level is to go into our oversoul, and none of us can access oversoul if we haven't done this level of healing. So although it may seem very complex, and these concepts may seem very new for a lot of people, it's absolutely fundamental. We should have been taught these from primary school, but it's fundamental we get our heads around them and we deal with them, so that we can begin to move back into true self, really begin to embody true self.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting with the trauma identification, because it always loops back to like these three things, which is the epigenetic, the experiential trauma, the ancestral, which would be the carried down experiences that would be then relayed in your physical environment, which would be the epigenetic. And the epigenetic ones can also be carried through DNA memory, so and consciousness memory. So when you're having these experiences, what happens to the epigenetic, on the epigenetic level, is that you have a trauma in your physical environment, which then turns off the chemical markers in the epigenome, and that blocks DNA activation and expansion. So as that happens, we've then got a shutting down of levels of awareness when those chemical markers turn off, and that blocks the higher sensory perception from activating. And usually this happens around like within the foundational years, the developmental years, and the experimental years, the years 1 to, we'll say 21, but then you've got an integration phase of 21 to 28. And then that leads into the Saturn return cycle of development, and then you move into a whole new phase of learning. So what we've got going on there is the breakdown of the epigenetics and how that ties into the ancestral, but then there's also the interdimensional aspect to this, and then how does that epigenetic then relate into the artificial overlay. So we're looking at all of these different levels so we can understand the structure of trauma, or how the structure of the timelines are kind of fused together. And I actually go into a bit more detail on this
I notice you also
later on as well.
You bring in the artificial trauma, which is what has been done to us. Because an awful lot of this isn't just our stuff. It has been very deliberately done. I mean, Felix talked there very coherently about the shutdown that happens. That has been engineered in a lot of cases. So and then, you know, the structure of the ego and personality fracture.
Yeah, these are all really important to understand what happens to the light body when we go through trauma, because it starts to manipulate how we develop in our ego state, whether it's going to go into a negative format or if it goes into a positive format. And all of this has a cause and effect response as to what layer of the structure it's building and how much that inhibits your physical growth and development. So when we have this kind of splitting and pull into one direction or the other, if we're going down the negative pathway, this then starts to limit the physical rehabilitation, because the energy blocks are blocking the life force from kind of coming back in, which then restricts the kind of consciousness expansion because it's so overrun with pain. But if we're looking at this from the other way, or correcting the other way, we want to kind of start to raise the awareness and the expansion to the light body, and how that creates an infinite expansion and a process to move towards immortality. So, and all of this
quite a goal there.
I like to dream big. So I think with the structure of the ego, it's so important to know the cause and effect response of what actually happens, so then we can take control of that. And really, I found that it's been the thing that's really helped me document a lot more of the behavioral patterns. So going back to the trauma identification, and you'll notice within this structure as well, everything is going to be interlinked. It's just been isolated out to look at different parts of the structure in order to kind of work with it. But these same techniques will help you process the higher dimensional minds as well as the lower dimensional minds. It's just the further up you go, there's going to be different things that will kind of come in, like architecture, like kind of implants and seals and stuff like that we want to kind of give you the base foundation first to be able to process that, and then go into being able to deal with the artificial nature in a more informed way.
Then of course we've got the emotional body, and you know the mental body, and really from what I can see, what you're doing here is giving people back an understanding that, again, we should all be being taught. I mean, we all own these bodies, we all have all of these layers of our body, and rather than you know part of the growing up process being taught how to properly utilize this vehicle and its many layers of complexity, we are basically shut down from asking the questions to know about it. So many people actually do not have a proper emotional language. They do not have a proper understanding of their emotional body, or you know, the way their mental patterns and you know thoughts and things like that may be running aspects of their lives. So you know, these are big topics, very big topics, aren't they?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's just a case of really diving deep into it and understanding the structures of it, because this basically puts the format into place in your own consciousness for you to start doing it automatically, because the subconscious will start to bring in the information that will then start to recode your light body and your autonomic response by taking in the information. Then you apply your own self-directed study time and practice time. And that basically starts a natural process of unfolding and evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then timeline healing.
Okay. Again, it's when we're doing the mental body and the emotional body, we're then able to start tracing it back to our own linear timeline. We can start tracing back the events back to like the kind of seed point or the major fracture point, just through asking
and
to
just quickly, can I ask here, are you talking about in this lifetime or?
Oh, it goes across the board. Yeah, it's the same techniques apply to go into the past life timelines, to go into the interdimensional timelines. Everything is transferable up the scale and down the scale. So this is the beauty of this, is like when you're done with your healing, quote unquote done, because I don't think we're ever done, it can then be transferred into like the same skill set that a seer or a channel would use to start channeling information or life force. So the skills evolve themselves naturally into being able to kind of deeply process and deeply activate the awareness. And as you kind of start reading the timelines, things start to shuffle around anyway, because as you're remote viewing, you can sense, oh, that doesn't feel quite right there. So the emotional threshold starts to come through the body. And then whilst you're experiencing that threshold, which can feel very, very intense and very emotional, things start to phase out and start to structure in a different way. And then you go back and start to review it again. It is a case of repetition, 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 because that is how things get reordered and put back together. Does this belief system still apply to what I'm feeling today? No, it doesn't. Okay, so what is my new belief system? What's my core value in this? Okay, put that back into that past self aspect. This changes the structure of your light from the past. And that starts to open the flow of life force back into your present. And it also starts to align your future aspect that is more evolved into the now. So it opens a space for you to then embody your highest self.
Yeah, and you know, from what you were saying there, you know, almost a side effect of engaging with all of these different aspects and bringing them back into alignment bit by bit, working to bring them, is that you know, your higher sense perception, all the different levels of higher sense perception begin to unpop and open up. Because this is, you know, it's been deliberately damaged and knocked down. So these things that you should be able to access organically, you know, we now see as being very special. I know only a few can get through it, and you know, these are, I mean, higher sense, you know, psychic senses, things like this, they are not spiritual. They are part of who we are as human beings. Can they be used spiritually? Yes, of course they can, by someone who's a highly spiritual person. But you know, I can remember being told very clearly by one of the teachers, psychic isn't spiritual. Get really clear about that. There are psychics who can pull you off course, off your spiritual course, just as easily as there are those who can help you with it. It is an aspect of the gifts, like some can sing beautifully, some write beautifully, some paint beautifully. It's just,
absolutely,
it's another expression of being human. But because some of these psychic senses enable us to reach through to higher levels, to different dimensional levels, to make linkages between all sorts of things, they've been very deliberately shut down to stop.
Absolutely. And I think one of the core things with healing, you are always moving out of that victimized mind into something that is loving, and that is a spiritual process in and of itself. That is an initiatory process to etherize the blood, and that is the Christed path. So the more we do heal ourselves and transform ourselves, when it turns out that we're not just doing this for our own needs, which at the start it will feel very much like that if you come from a background like I have. It then goes into, I'm doing this because I want that connection to God. I'm doing this because I want to see the world heal. Because whatever you heal within yourself, you're contributing that healing to the timelines, the collective timelines, the universal timelines. And that starts to reshuffle everything and reorder everything. So then we get a more going back to that spiral of truth, we refine the consciousness to narrow it down into its core expression of Christed love.
Yeah, and what you're really doing is you're teaching people to come back to themselves. Great note to finish on. Just tell people where they can sign up. You start the course in?
I start the course on October 7th. It's fully recorded. There is a Discord server as well for people who join on to have a community built around that, where we can kind of answer questions and, you know, participate in healings with others. So you can go to my website at www.felixhyde.com and look for the tab that is the Structures of Healing Level 1. I do offer payment plans on this as well. If you wanted to split it over 3 months, that is okay to do so. So yeah, just drop me an email at felixhyde1990@outlook.com. Unless you wanted to just book it outright, that's also fine as well. And yeah, it'd be lovely to work with you.
Yeah, well, you know, sort of good luck with it. It's such a comprehensive course. As a foundation, it's so comprehensive. And I know from talking to you, I know from my own experience, there's so much more on top of this. But even with this foundation, you can go a very long way, can't you? A very long way towards wholeness, back towards wholeness again. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, highly recommend it. I highly recommend Felix's healing sessions as well. And yeah, I look forward to what comes next.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been lovely to see you today.
Yeah, thank you, Felix, and thank you everyone for watching. And I'll put all of Felix's details down below.
Thank you. Okay, bye everyone.
Bye.